up on the mountain with Eric Bissell. He's been gainfully employed up here. Eric, we were talking about Malachi 4, where he's talking about, remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant Moshe. That's the last mention of Torah in the Tanakh. And then what do you know? The first mention of Torah in the Brit Hadashah is Matthew 5. And Messiah is saying, hey, this ain't going nowhere. I'm calling heaven and earth as witnesses here. Let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm limiting you to 20 minutes. Can you do it?
Sure. Just remind me.
Sure, he says.
There might be some wind. You get closer here.
Okay, we're ready.
See that? The figure 8 is actually the eternity symbol. Happens to be these two logs sitting here. But he told us that the Torah would be forever and ever, not done away with. With heaven and earth is the witness. As long as heaven and earth existed, the Torah would not be done away with. And Yeshua came here. He said, don't even think that I've come to do away with the translated law and the prophets, Torah and the Nevi'im, right?
Yep.
And that at one point he's going to make a new heaven, a new earth. But until...
That's when the first heaven and first earth pass away.
But until this heaven and earth pass away, the Torah must be preeminent. So getting a little beat up here, 2/3 of the way through is Malachi in the Hebrew writing. So in the King James, Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament. But here, you've got Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, Chronicles. And the Hebrew Bible ends with Chronicles, 2 Chronicles. But, just saying after this is Psalms, so this is the last of the prophets. I don't know if that wind is going to be an issue. I'm not sure where the speaker is. Anyway, the point is, it says here, in this version, Malachi 3, you said it was Malachi 4, again, King James. Malachi 3:22. Well, let me back up. Verse 18. For behold, the day is coming. Now let me back up. In Malachi 3:16 and 17, Yahweh listened to those who fear him and give thought to his name. They will be a precious treasure for me, says Yahuwah Zavot, on the day that I bring about, and I will have mercy on them as a man has mercy on his son who serves him. So this is talking about the hope, the expectation, the reason for regarding the Torah. Has nothing to do with being saved or having your sins forgiven. It's being a son who serves the wishes of our Father. Verse 18, then you will return and see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between the one who serves Elohim. That word serve is obed, which is where you get the word obedience, and it's translated worship or serve. Who serves Elohim, and one who does not serve him. This doesn't say anything about who is saved and unsaved, or who believes and isn't believed, or those who have the gifts of the Spirit and those who don't have the gifts of the Spirit, or those who speak in tongues and those who don't speak in tongues. This has got to do, then you will see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between one who serves Yahuwah, Obed, and the one who does not Obed, Yahuwah. For behold, the day is coming. So this is a future prophecy. Burning like an oven, when all the wicked people and all the evildoers will be like straw, and on that coming day will burn them up, says Yahweh Zavot, so that it will not leave them a root nor a branch. That hasn't happened yet. But a son of righteousness will shine for you, who fear my name. That word fear is yirah, which also means to have something put on exhibition. And the word name is Shem, which means fame, renown, reputation. So to those who Yahweh has made evident who he is, not just that he has a 4-letter name and how do you pronounce those letters, but what is he about? What is he like? What's his thing? What's his shtick? Where's he at? That's his name. And to fear his name is not just, yeah, he's a scary guy, he's going to hurt you. It's a matter of having a regard, a reverence. The same word for see, to view on exhibition and to perceive, is the same word for fear and reverence in Hebrew. Those who fear my name with healing in its rays, and you will go out and flourish like calves in the stall. You will trample the wicked, for they will be ashes under the soles of your feet. On that day I bring about, so that sounds like the wicked are going to get burned up, and the righteous will be still living on the face of the earth. Says Yahweh Zevaot, remember the Torah of Moshe my servant, which I commanded him at Horeb for all of Israel, its decrees and its statutes. Why didn't he say, remember it until the day that I make it done away with when the Messiah comes? He didn't say that. And for the last verse that the prophet spoke, he's leaving us with, make sure you remember. Do not forget. Do not believe anybody who comes and tells you otherwise.
Just like remember the Shabbat.
And then he says here, now this is something, Passover, Pesach, just was observed around the world. And they traditionally, the people of Jewish faith and culture who have a Passover table, from what I understand, they have an empty plate set for Elijah the prophet. Why? Why would they have a service plate so that he could join them at the Passover meal for Elijah the prophet? Where's that come from? This next verse, Malachi 3:23. Behold, I send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahweh, which they say that's the Mashiach. The Messiah, Mashiach of Yahweh, is the great day that he's coming, that he's going to destroy the wicked, which we just read about. And he will turn back the hearts of the fathers with their sons, and the hearts of the sons with their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with utter destruction. Okay, so he's going to send Elijah the prophet, and he's going to turn the hearts of the sons back to the fathers, the hearts of the fathers back to the son. What does that even mean? Otherwise, I'm going to smack everybody with a hand of destruction. It's like, talk about a big scary threat. Who's he talking to, and what's he talking about? Well, there's a different way to read this. Behold, Hana Anoki Shalach Lacham et Eliyah ha-Neviah. Behold, I am, this is dispatch or send, like shooting out a missile, or to send out somebody a malach, an angel, to do something for you. It's also the word for divorce. Lachem, to them, Aleph Tav, Aleph Lamed Yod Hey. That's the word translated Elijah or Eliyahu, but it's just Aleph Lamed Yod Hey, which can be read as toward me. And then the word the prophet is Hey Nun Bet Yod Aleph Hanaviah. Bet Yod Aleph means to arrive, but the word Hey Nun Bet literally means to set ablaze, like lighting a fire. So you could say that what's translated Elijah the prophet, I'm going to send you Elijah the prophet, he's actually saying, I'm going to dispatch from heaven to the realm of here on earth, Aleph Tav, toward me, being set ablaze. Well, that's this whole study of the ancient Hebrew, the Hebrew roots, the turning back to the Torah, that people are suddenly realizing, wait a minute, we've been told we shouldn't do this. We don't have to do this. It was nailed to the cross. And then it says, Lifnei bo yom Yahweh. So the word lifnei means before, or in the presence of, or the countenance, or even my face. Lafnei, lifnei. In the face of the arriving of the day of Yahweh, the great and the awesome, Ha-Gadol Ve'ha-Norah. Then it says Ve'hashiv, the return, Lev Avot, the heart of the father. But the word Avot also can mean willing consent or desire that a father would have toward the son, the sons, the children. So you could read this as saying the same type of desire that our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the 12 patriarchs, then you got Moshe and David and looking back even 2,000 years ago, Yeshua, our forefathers of our belief. The ones that were passionate, he's going to stir up that type of desire. So for us to look back at this Torah is not a matter of going back under the law or forsaking his grace or going back under legalism. It's rekindling, like setting ablaze, the zeal in the heart that was in our forefathers to us children. And then it says, Benim al Havot, so that's the word, the children unto the fathers. But the word Benim is, Nun Yod Mem is capillaries. So capillaries is the microscopic small blood vessels that conduct you might say, the nutrients of the blood flow to every cell. This is where the subject matter is getting down to every little detail, every little cell of creation. Here it is, springtime. There was a fire a couple years ago.
2 years ago, it's starting to come back.
Completely devastated, totally wiped out.
Complete burn around here.
It's completely growing back. Why are we going back to looking at the Torah? Because he said when our forefathers turned their back, when our forefathers were given the truth of the Torah is teaching and instruction. It's not law. Law is chok. Torah is the teaching and instructions of the covenant of light. He gave that to our forefathers. And then they turned away. They betrayed the instructions. They did everything counter to what he said. And he said, if you do what I say, you'll get blessed. And if you don't do what I say, you'll bring the curse on. And the curse is absolute destruction, which is what happened here. But he said, when you turn back to my ways, and we can get into a couple more verses, we're going to keep this short. We'll do part 2 here in a moment. When you turn back to my ways, it will automatically restart, rekindle, regrow the earth. Like what's happening here, springtime. Look at all these pollen and seeds in the trees. This tree is planning on a few more future generations. That's why it's putting out seeds. Interestingly enough, he said to the people of Israel, if you do a certain few things, you look back at the 10 Commandments, he said, this is who I am, regard who I am, and do not regard any other Elohim. No Elohim Achrim, nobody else. And how do we regard who he is? Well, he has a name that he told us, and he said, this is my day, the 7th day. Do not work on the 7th day. If you do not work on the 7th day, that's proof that you're regarding who I am. If you keep any other day, that's a different Elohim, so it's not me. And then in Leviticus 23, excuse me, he gives us the 7 Moedim. These are my adornment, my witnesses and testimony, such that if you keep those, it's the proof that you're recognizing me. If you keep different holidays and customs days, different traditions, you're worshiping or regarding or serving some different Elohim. So, for the last 2,000 years since the Roman Caesar instituted that the day of the week should be regarded as most holy, the venerable day of the sun, that's Mithraism, it's a different Elohim. And when we were given regard of the equinoxes and solstices, different Elohim. And we were given a different name. The word Zeus and the word Jove, otherwise known as Jupiter, both came out of a variation, a permutation of the word Yod-He-Vav-He. The phonetics and the handwriting, the orthography of the letter shapes. So somebody could look at it and say, oh, the Roman God and the Greek God, the same guy. No, no, no. As soon as you change something, it's not the same guy. And Yahweh said, when everything goes to wreck and ruin, devastation, and you find yourself living in a time of dormancy, everything looks dead, like some of these trees look, they were completely dead, and here suddenly they're blossoming out another month and these things will be fully green. When you find that all has happened, the blessing and the curse, as I warned you, Deuteronomy 30 verse 1, then you will return to me. The hearts of your children will return to these very words that I command you this day. That's not in Matthew, that's in Deuteronomy. That's the days of Moshe. And when you do, everything comes back to life. So I find it very interesting that for at least the last 2,000 years, since the authority of the ecclesiastical church rule, church with Rome, church and state, Rome dominated the monarchies of the Middle Ages of Europe, and even still today they have a huge influence. That Rome mandated that no observance of the Sabbath day or what Constantine called the detestable practices of the Jews. You can find his writing actually online. So the church has been the authority which has kept the testimonies, the identity of Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh Eloheinu, kept it away from us and wouldn't allow us, legally would not allow Yahweh's people to observe the recognition of him as Elohim by keeping his name and his day. and his festivals. And so by doing that, they actually imposed that we will bring the curse on ourselves. Yahweh said, if you do not keep my ways, the curse will come. If you do not keep the Sabbath day and the festivals, it brings a curse, it brings a desolation, a drought, a consumption, a burning up of everything he provided.
It's just staggering to even think about that. Here, regard my seventh day. Nope, we're going to do the Sunday. Regard my festivals. Nope, we got our own stuff. We got Christmas and Easter and stuff like that. Don't eat the pig. No, we love the pig. He says everything he says don't do, they do.
He said call on his name, change his name so his name can't be called on.
Everything.
So here you have millions of people over thousands of years with a heart yearning to call out to him, to love him, to worship him, and yet the correct route, the path, the Obed, when he says, my servants, he said about the house of Jacob, that they were his servants, his worshipers, his children. He said, this is how you do it. And the church changed it. No, you can't do it. You can't do it unless you read Hebrew and figure out what it says. But you have to become a heretic to the church to even address these matters that I'm talking about. You have to become a heretic, in which case during the Inquisition, they did some very horrible things to those people who wouldn't go along with the ways of the church. And there was this 2,730-year curse over as of 2010. So imagine that ever since the days of Moshe, didn't have access to the concept of the Mashiach, Messiah Yeshua, that we got 2,000 years ago. But ever since then, the people in his following, the church, has established a removal and a disregard of everything he came to show us. He says, follow me. He only did the things he saw his father doing. He only said the things he heard his father saying. He said, follow me. And then Paul comes along and supposedly said, hey, you don't have to do any of that. Well, then who the hell is Paul that we should regard him if he changed what Yeshua said? Well, then maybe we've got a bad translation of what Paul said. If you read the book of Acts, 4 times Paul said, hey, I didn't change anything. I never talked against the Torah or the fathers or the tabernacle or the temple. He listed one of the things. He said, I never spoke anything against that. All I said was the one we were expecting to show up is the one that did show up. He was crucified and he rose again. That's the only change that Paul brought to anything, was the understanding that was, whoa, the guy we were expecting showed up, he was put to death, he rose again. For that, suddenly Paul is on record from our English translation as having done away with the Torah and done away with everything that Yahweh told us never to do away with. So Paul has been used as the patsy, the one who would take away any of our desire to do what Yahweh said, even though it is our desire to do exactly what Yahweh said. But because of what people say Paul said, oh, we don't have to. And yet, when we don't, it perpetuates the curse. And so now the curse has been perpetuated very conveniently, and I think that Yahweh set it up that way himself, that for 2,000 years, none of the people that would have liked to do what he said could do what he said. Because of the doctrine that we've been taught, the fact that it was all done away with, the language was changed. And so here we are, the reason for talking about these things, just like those, they're called Narcissus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Narcissus was a Greek legend about a guy who always liked to look in the mirror at himself because they're so beautiful. But just like those things come back in the springtime, just after the equinox, when the temperature gets just right and the sun is shining, then it's like, hey, everything grows back fresh and clean and new. Hey, why don't you go end up the film by looking at that instead of me? Go ahead. Take the camera
you've
under
got
the
30
Narcissus.
seconk left.
Okay, I'm going to walk over to you.
Always making it difficult, aren't you?
30 seconds left. Keep it in 20 minutes. Hey, look at these things. Yahweh's going to regrow his kingdom, and we'll talk about that in another verse in just a minute. Just like these things come back to life in the spring when the conditions are right, we're now here at 2020, 10 years past the end of the curse. We got this thing. Don't listen to anybody telling you the Torah and the testimony has been done away with, because look, heaven and earth remain, and Yahweh is our Elohim. Hodu la Yoah ki tov ki le olam chazdo.
I'm going to show people a little bit of your 2-day project so far. He's been working his butt off out here. He got all this done in 2 days. He poured the cement, built the risers, leveled the floor. Now he's got the walls coming. He said the roof's going to be done in another day. Guy's amazing. Even knows a little Hebrew. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.